Leaders around the world that I've talked to are dumbfounded. They stopped, took a few steps back and said, I can't believe the president's going after your country. And we're in disbelief too. But now we're going to move forward.
That was Ontario Premier Doug Ford on international reaction to President Trump's tariffs on Canada. Ford and other Canadian premiers met with 5 governors in Boston Monday. Those talks featured the governors of Maine, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Massachusetts. Governor Maura Healey of Massachusetts joins us from Boston. Governor, you mentioned that tourism is down from Canada, but can you give a sense of how much and how impactfully?
Well, in the Northeast, if you're looking at New England and New York, tourism is down between 20 and 60%. We're just not seeing the Canadian tourists in this region. We've had school trips canceled that normally happen in the spring in particular. We've seen less traffic coming into Logan Airport here in Boston. And that is similar as you look across the Northeast region. And they're also seeing it in Florida as well, by the way. Numbers are way down in terms of Canadian tourists. And, obviously that's a big hit economically.
Did you get a sense from the provincial leaders in Canada what they think the remedy is, what they recommend a governor, a mayor do, if not the president?
Well, I think they recognize that there's only so much that we can do as governors. But that said, they very much appreciated, I think we all appreciated, governors and premiers, the opportunity to talk together about what we can do. How can we promote tourism between and among the provinces and our states? How can we promote trade and better trade agreements and relationships, particularly with the supply chain that's been so disrupted by Trump's tariffs? And how can we work on energy? Canada supplies a tremendous amount of energy into the Northeast. We need that energy. We got to lower energy costs across the Northeast. And we had good conversations about how we can more quickly bring more energy from Canada into the region. And also, if we were to get wind going, we have an opportunity to bring wind energy up to Canada. So that's important. The clear takeaway, though, is that not only do we need to stay in collaboration and communication, which is what we pledged to do, we also need to continue to advocate for the United States government and the Canadian government to put this to bed. Donald Trump needs to stop with the tariffs on our greatest trading partner, on one of our greatest allies, because it's hurting economies on both sides of the border. And that was very clear from the discussion that we had.
Well, you and the other Democratic governors have been unequivocal criticizing the president for initiating or allowing this trade dispute with Canada. What have you told or asked the Canadians to do? You had this audience with the provincial leaders. What did you suggest or prescribe for them to do?
We said, keep working with us. While things hopefully get sorted out. And I hope that Donald Trump can come together and work with Prime Minister Carney and get something done. And instead of, imposing and creating this tax and further disruption to our supply chain, let's commit to working together. And we committed to doing just that. I know a number of us are working on trade missions to Canada. We had a number of Canadian premiers here for our life sciences conference, BIO, which is an international conference. And that's very, very important. We asked them to continue to talk to us and also, don't stop the tourism. Send people here. Don't discourage people from visiting the Northeast. We're your friends. We're your allies. We have ties that are cultural and familial and economic. And let's find a way to continue, at least between and among eastern provinces in Canada and the Northeast. Let's find a way to keep things going, to keep things working, while hopefully, some of this federal business resolves itself. I've also said, let's be open to new partnerships. The Canadians, as you can imagine, are very hot to recruit our students, our scientists, our researchers who have had their NIH funding pulled away. And, I was very clear that I want those folks to stay in, for example, Massachusetts, where we're a global hub for science and research and life sciences. But are there partnerships that we can explore across the border that both would get benefit from? So it's that kind of attitude, it's a recognition that these are allies, long-standing relationships that just shouldn't be ripped up, shredded overnight. Our businesses are suffering. Our residents are suffering. consumers are paying more. You know, the tariffs alone, I'll tell you, are estimated to add $2.5 billion to heating bills over the next few years here in New England. I mean, we can't afford that. Our businesses can't afford that. And it's just so unnecessary. So let's clean up the mess. And that's my message to Donald Trump and the federal administration. Let's put this behind us so that we can move on with constructive trade, economic relationships, and partnerships.
As this weekend, there's this other matter, this landmark settlement between the Purdue Pharma company, the maker of that highly addictive OxyContin, and all the states in America. All 50 states will have a piece of this settlement, about $7 billion. When you were Attorney General back in 2018, you were the first to file this type of suit against that company and the family that owned them. What should we make of this next step of this $7 billion settlement?
Well, I think it's another really positive development. You know, as Attorney General, when I put together that lawsuit, when I went after members of the Sackler family, in addition to Purdue Pharma, it was all about getting justice for people who had lost their sons and daughters, their mothers and their fathers, their sisters and brothers to this deadly opioid disease that, you know, in so many respects was created, was manufactured, was promoted, was enabled because of the greed of companies like Purdue and people like the Sacklers. So we worked really hard to go out and secure billions years ago. I'm glad that there was an effort back in court to get even more money that will go, importantly, to fund treatment programs and recovery programs and prevention programs. And, you know, that's very, very important because there's still, unfortunately, a need for that across the United States.
We have just a moment left, but you suspect your state may use some of this money towards addiction prevention.
Absolutely. I mean, my view has always been it's far better to be dealing with things on the front end. The more you can do around prevention, around education, the less likely it is you're going to be seeing people suffer down the line or, unfortunately, you know, dying down the line. And so I think that's important. I will also say, though, especially as Congress is looking to potentially do these devastating cuts to Medicaid and to other health-funded streams, including for recovery and substance, you know, addiction needs. You know, it's all the more important that this money be there for states and cities and towns to be able to use to help their residents.
In Massachusetts, in Boston, Governor Maura Healey, thank you very much.
Great to be with you.